The UK is about to enter the biggest transfer of property ownership in modern history, and the public still thinks it's all about mortgage rates and house prices. But under the surface, a new wave of buyers, far bigger and more powerful than anything we've seen before, is already positioning themselves to take over huge parts of Britain's housing market. And the terrifying thing is no one is stopping them. Today, I'm going to show you exactly who is buying Britain next, and the data behind all of this is honestly shocking. If you're new here, I'm Will Gale. My companies, British Home Buyers and British Home Sellers, handle thousands of property transactions each and every single year. Right now, we currently have over 700 properties on the market that we're selling. So me, the team, we see shifts long before they show up in the headlines. And what we're seeing right now should worry everyone. In the next few minutes, I'll show you the new buyers entering the market, how they're positioning to dominate UK housing, the government policies that are actually helping them do this, and what this means for normal homeowners and investors. Let's get into it. Let's look at the new data, because the first thing you need to understand is this. The UK is no longer a market driven by first-time buyers. It's a market increasingly driven by large-scale organised capital, and the data makes this impossible to ignore. According to the latest build-to-rent investment and housing reports, build-to-rent, the institutional gateway, is exploding. The most recent data shows the UK now has 123,000 completed build-to-rent homes, just over 49,000 under construction, and over 109,000 in planning. This is the clearest evidence that large-scale investors are replacing small landlords as providers of rental stock. Corporate landlords are growing fast. Build-to-rent completions rose 17% year on year, almost all owned or funded by corporate or institutional landlords. Grainger owns over 11,000 homes and is building more. Lloyds Bank plans to become the UK's largest landlord, targeting 50,000 homes by 2030. Legal & General already poured over £3 billion into rental housing. These aren't accidental landlords. They are professionally funded, professionally managed, and scaling every year. Sovereign wealth funds are ramping up UK housing investments. Knight Frank's global capital tracker shows that sovereign wealth funds and global institutions have increased allocations in UK living sectors, they put it, including rental housing. It's increased by 40% over recent years. The UK is seen as politically stable, legally safe, long-term yield-friendly, chronically undersupplied, a perfect environment for giant long-term capital allocation. It is no surprise that private equity is moving into lower value homes as well. Private equity and large investors are increasingly targeting sub £250,000 property stock, the exact price range where most first-time buyers compete for those sorts of homes. Why? Because unlike apartment blocks, single-family homes are more likely to attract stable long-term tenants and easier to develop within the UK's planning system. This is new. It's an evolution from the earlier institutional investment targeting large city centre apartment blocks to now single-family homes. Now they're hunting the same stock ordinary buyers but families need. Also, UK pension funds are becoming large-scale landlords. Major pension schemes like L&G, Aviva have increased allocations to build-to-rent, to long-term rental blocks, to suburban rental communities, affordable housing. Why? Because rental income is inflation-linked, stable, predictable, demand-proof, perfect for pensions. So the big shift for the year ahead is this. Institutional and global capital isn't just participating in the housing market anymore, it is literally shaping it, and it's expanding directly into the parts of the market where first-time buyers used to dominate, where buyers buying family homes used to dominate. So let's talk about the three groups taking over. Firstly, sovereign wealth funds, the silent mega buyers. Countries like Norway, Singapore, Qatar, the UAE are increasing exposure to UK rental housing because it offers them long-term stability, inflation protection, a guaranteed tenant base, low political risk. These funds aren't buying individual houses. They buy build-to-rent towers and developments, rental communities, regeneration schemes, entire portfolios, entire communities. They accumulate and rarely, if ever, sell. That is important for us all to understand. Let me explain about private credit and debt funds, because the new power players, and this is probably one of the most underreported shifts in that's happening in UK property right now. Debt funds aren't buying homes directly, they're buying the loans behind them. Private credit funds have rapidly expanded their lending to UK property developers. Specialist debt funds are acquiring non-performing property loans as banks pull back. Alternative lenders are increasingly refinancing distressed development loans. Right now, private debt funds are now one of the largest sources of development finance out there. You know, these non-bank lenders are buying distressed or sort of non-core loan books from banks. And here's why this matters, because when developers or landlords default, can't refinance, or the project stalls, the lender gains control of the underlying assets, often at a discount. And this is very similar to what happened over 2008 when private equity and debt funds accumulated all this distressed property through these real estate loans and ended up controlling huge rental portfolios on the back of it. But I think it's important we also talk about pension funds, because they're the sort of quiet long-term winners as well. In the last couple of years, government reforms, including the mansion house pension changes, have made it easier for pension funds to invest in long-term income-producing housing. It makes them a competitor in the market for day-to-day buyers. That includes build-to-rent, suburban rental communities, affordable housing blocks, like we spoke about earlier. And of course, pension providers like L&G, LGIM and Aviva investors have already committed billions to these sectors because residential rental income is, like I said, stable, inflation-linked, long-term. And here's the key point. When a pension fund buys 500 or 1,000 homes, they don't sell them again. They hold them as yield assets for decades inside institutional vehicles. These homes don't return to the owner-occupier market because they're not treated as individual units. They're part of a long-term rental portfolio. To a pension fund, a home isn't a family asset. It's a 30-year income stream. So why is this happening? The UK became a renter nation far faster than expected. The PRS, the private rental sector, has doubled since the early 2000s. Renting is now the default for younger generations, and chronic undersupply means rental demand keeps rising along with prices. And investors love rental demand. You don't have to work for it, it just increases. But what I feel makes this worse is how policy is subtly favouring big landlords over small landlords or big corporates. A few examples is the Renters Reform Bill abolishing Section 21. It sounds like a win for tenants, and it is on paper, but here's the problem. Section 21 is no fault, so it doesn't leave a mark on a tenant. Without it, landlords must use Section 8, which means going through the courts, proving a fault, which creates a permanent legal record on the tenant, and that can stay with the tenant for years. Small landlords relied heavily on Section 21 because it was predictable. Corporate landlords already operate mostly through Section 8 with their legal teams and structured processes. So the irony is ending Section 21 hits small landlords the hardest and also makes evictions far harsher for tenants because they're going to start getting criminal records. The next example is stamp duty. It's higher for individuals. We all pay normal residential stamp duty rates you can see here on the left. You, of course, pay the extra 5% on top if it's an additional property. But on the right, if anyone buys 6 or more residential properties in a single transaction, you pay non-residential stamp duty rates on the right there, which are less. And who do you think are buying 6 or more properties at a time? And before anyone comments below that this loophole was abolished, which happens every time I mention this, it wasn't. What was abolished is multiple dwellings relief, which is an entirely different thing. If you buy 6 or more properties at once today, you pay those lower rates of stamp duty on the right there. So ask yourself, how is that fair? So it is no surprise that UK smaller landlords are exhausted and selling up. According to the English Private Landlord Survey, large numbers of small landlords plan to sell because of taxes, regulation, EPC changes and interest rates. These are all things driving their exits. Every sale creates an opening, and who is waiting with cash? It's not necessarily first-time buyers, not necessarily upsizers or downsizers, but it's institutions. So what does this mean for you? If you're a first-time buyer, your competition is no longer another couple, a local family, someone moving out of rented, a local landlord perhaps. It's pension funds, sovereign funds, private credit firms, and they don't do viewings, they do bulk. If you're a homeowner, expect rising foreign and institutional capital entering the country, more properties moved into permanent rental stock, rising long-term rents, fewer local buyers able to compete. This isn't good or bad, it's just the new reality. And if you're a landlord, 2 options: either you scale or be squeezed out, as small landlords are going to face rising costs, rising compliance, rising tax pressures. But landlords who grow portfolios strategically can ride the same wave as institutions, which again, this isn't a debate whether it's good or bad for society, that's just what the reality is. So what happens next? Here's the trajectory the data suggests. Build to rent will continue expanding, pension funds will keep increasing exposure, sovereign wealth funds will keep buying UK living sector assets because we make the environment so great for them to do it, private equity will continue moving into cheaper stock, institutional share of the rental market will rise significantly through the rest of this decade, and once these homes move into institutional ownership, it's game over. They're never coming back into the public circulation again. It's a one-way transfer, which is the really damaging thing about this. So what can you do now? One, if you want to own, act sooner. The competition isn't waiting for you, and the powers that be want prices to rise with inflation. If you're an investor, build scale or build strategy. The casual landlord era is ending. Thirdly, if you already own, protect your position. Housing policy over the next decade will shape everything. You know, the mansion taxes at properties over 2 million, wait till it moves to properties that are priced less. The next decade of British housing will be defined by who owns the homes, not just what they cost. Some countries protect citizens from ownership concentration. The UK, it's rolling out the red carpet, and unless something changes, the next wave of buyers won't be British families, it will be global capital. Before you go, there are 2 videos I think you have to watch if you've enjoyed this one, because they connect directly to everything we've talked about today that I couldn't possibly put in one video. If you want to understand how we got here, watch my video, Who's Really Buying Up Britain? It's a really good one. It breaks down the shift in ownership in a way that I don't think the mainstream really covers. And if you want to understand what happens next, you need to watch The Death of the Property Owning Middle Class. It shows the long-term pattern no one, again, seems to be willing to talk about. Together, those videos will give you the full picture of what's happening in UK property, past, present, and the direction we're heading. I'll see you in one of those videos. Bye.